Hello and welcome back to ESBR Boxing. Delighted to be joined with my colleague Gregory Doyle. Greg, we're here to analyse another big fight in Belfast. We've got Troy Williamson against Caoimhín Agyarko. How are we tonight, Greg? And are you looking forward to this fight?
Thanks so much for having me as always, Owen. Yeah, looking forward to this fight. It's two guys that can carry a bit of a punch, isn't it? Massive setup up for Caoimhín Agyarko. Troy Williamson, he wants to prove that he's still at a certain level. So yeah, I'm all for this fight.
Going straight into that, like you say, it's a case of Troy Williamson. Obviously, he's only got that one loss to Josh Kelly. Caoimhín Agyarko is yet to get a big win on his CV. For Caoimhín Agyarko, this is a step up. Do you think it's the right step up? And do you think it's sort of now or never for the step up?
I think it's a high risk, high reward fight for Caoimhín Agyarko. I look at the fight and I think Troy Williamson has had one, well, apart from the very early draw in his career with Jack Flatley, he's had one bad night against Josh Kelly. Josh Kelly's probably not a guy in terms of skill set that you want to fight if you're having a bad night. Very risky move, throwing Caoimhín Agyarko in with a guy who's had one bad night. To say so, yeah, I think that it could be the right move because Troy Williamson, he's in his 30s now. Caoimhín Agyarko, he's probably got ambitions for the British title and onwards. So high risk, high reward is how I see this fight.
What do you make of Caoimhín Agyarko? Because he's got sort of a good reputation. Um, he hasn't really been, I wouldn't say necessarily inactive, but we could have seen him more. And he's fought a couple of unbeaten fighters, but they're relatively unknown. Do you think we could have seen more from Caoimhín Agyarko, or is it a case of they've just been sort of ticking him along and waiting for a night like tomorrow against a Troy Williamson, where if he gets the victory, it's here is Caoimhín Agyarko?
Some fighters like Agyarko, when they need to be put in with someone that gives them a bit of fear before you see how good they are. One big question for me is we've not seen the chin of Kevin and Jarko tested either to a certain extent. Dan Dennis, solid performance, but it didn't really set the world alight.
Mhm.
But what I would say is there's definitely potential there. He punches quite hard. He looks as though he believes in himself a lot. He's got the new training team behind him, a training team that has guys like Aston Brown, Josh Taylor, Liam Smith. So yeah, it's a really interesting fight, and I think that there is potential there with Caoimhín and Jarko, but I do want to see what happens when he gets hit in the chin. Troy Williamson is not the type of guy that you want to let have free shots at you.
And then from Troy Williamson's perspective, it's a difficult one because it almost feels like a crossroads fight when it isn't at all. He's only, like you say, he's only had that one loss to Josh Kelly. Josh Kelly's only had that one loss to David Avanesian, who, like I say, when we spoke off camera, I referred to David Avar as the sort of like the boogeyman of the
Yeah.
division. For Troy Williamson, is this also a high risk, high reward scenario, or is it sort of more with a Jarko's record? Is it a high risk, low reward situation?
It's the latter one because if Troy Williamson loses this fight, he's essentially, I don't mean to sound harsh, but I think he might be finished even at domestic level because this is a guy that's coming up. He's not proved himself yet. He's fought solid opposition. Troy Williamson will want a pathway very, very quickly back to that British title and beyond. If you're losing to a guy who hasn't really fought at that level yet, then you're probably looking at a promoter giving you that fight with a guy who they know is definitely going on to world level. So it's going to get hard. It's going to be hard to get a fight that's maybe a 50-50, a 60-40. So I think Troy Williamson has to win tomorrow night.
And finally, just before we move on to the your predictions, do you feel? I know you've mentioned it for both fighters. Do you feel the British title's next? Is either win for either fighter big enough to say they need another fight, or it's okay, British title next sort of thing, or is it a case of it's a big enough fight to just put them straight in with the British champion?
I think we have to be realistic. Oh, and sometimes other people talk about the British title as I don't want to say a world title, but they think that you've got to probably be a certain level. I don't want to sound harsh, but I think, see, if you've had anything between 8 and 15 fights, you can be thrown in for the British title, because if you're good enough to go on and win major honours in boxing, you're ready for the British title between that level of fights. If there's a guy who's solid out there that's British champion, you've won anything between 8 and 15 on the bounce, stop 2/3 of your opponent, I think you should always fight for the British title. So maybe that's an old school way of looking at it, but yeah, I think they should be there, absolutely there, thereabouts for a shot at the time.
Yeah, I think that's more than fair. Especially you justified it in the analysis. However, it's a prediction video. It's a final prediction video. So, Greg, I do have to push you on this one. Who wins tomorrow night and how?
It's such a hard fight because I see ways both guys win this. I can see Troy Williamson being arrogant, covering up, giving Agyarko a few rounds, but not getting hit too much in the second half of the fight. Really put it on him and take him into wars that he's not been in. Also, I see Agyarko maybe being too elusive. Troy Williamson's had a few hard fights. He's approaching his mid-30s. If he gets hit by a young, fresh fighter who's going to give him hell, does he really want to stay in there and go hell for leather with a guy like that? It's a hard one on, but I think I lean more just slightly towards Agyarko. I just think that the freshness could see him by. I just think that he carries maybe a little more power than Troy Williamson, but not an awful lot more. I think both guys are a similar power level.
Yeah.
I just think that timing's everything in boxing. We seem to say that a lot, and I just think that, yeah, Troy Williamson, he's had the loss to George Kelly. He's come back and had a 6 rounder, and there's nothing really happened from there. Whereas Agyarko, he's younger, fresher, moving up under Joe McNally, under a great team round about him. The signs just point in his direction. So, yeah, I think I just fancy Caoimhín Agyarko tomorrow night, but I'm not overly confident of that prediction.
I'm going to come with my own prediction actually on this video as well. I
Okay.
really fancy the Troy Williamson stoppage late.
Mm.
I think, like you say, we haven't seen Agyarko tested.
Yeah.
Now, like I said previously, Troy Williamson, he's not a Golovkin or someone that's formidable that's going to punch holes in your head. But I do think, like as you alluded to, if you let him land, he does carry heavy hands. And I just think Caoimhín Agyarko, his chin hasn't been tested. And I think it will get tested tomorrow night. And I can just see Troy Williamson almost, I hate to say him, but almost outmanning him, and just having a bit more grit, a bit more determination, and managing to get it over the line. So obviously, one of us, draw dependent, one of us has to be correct. But as we said, it looks set to be a fantastic fight, a
Great fight.
great fight for both men.
Yeah.
Let us know what you think in the comments, guys. If you agree with Greg, if you agree with myself, if you think either of us are a million miles away with our prediction, let us know. Like, subscribe, and continue watching our videos. And make sure you let us know in the comments if either of us are wrong. Greg, it's been a pleasure, and I look forward to watching the fight tomorrow.
Thanks as always.